Okay, so in the last video we talked about what does a sound designer do. Now, and mostly for the rest of the lesson, I want to talk about why. Because you won't do it well unless you know why you're doing it. And there's a few different reasons why sound design is important. Ways to sort of think about it and approach it. So the first one, and in some ways the sort of fundamental one, you can kind of skim everything else if you get this first thing right. The first reason to do sound design is to create a believable reality, right? Even if you're doing something like WALL-E. That film only works if the audience can immerse themselves into the world and it feels like a real place. So even animation, even science fiction animation, which is about as not real as you can get, your goal of a sound designer is to still make it feel like it is real or could be real. And certainly for any live action regular fiction, your sound recordist has gotten rid of the world for you. You now need to layer it back in and make it real. I have two different examples that I'm going to have you watch. So, and both of which I'm going to, in the link, I'm going to give you start here and here timestamps for it. You can watch more of it if you want. I wouldn't have shown it in class any more than that for assorted reasons, but you're all grown-ups, so whatever. But also, if you watch more of it, then this whole thing takes more time, so that's on you. But what I want you to sort of pay attention to and listen to is the relationship between the background sounds and the dialogue. One of them's in French. You don't have to know what they're saying, although there is subtitles. The other one's in English. But again, it doesn't actually matter what they're saying, but what I want you to sort of hear is that we hear them speaking very clearly, in spite of the fact that in both examples, there's a lot of people in the background. Well, one of them, the When Harry Met Sally example, there's a lot of people in the background. They're in a very crowded diner. If you're shooting a scene with two people having dialogue and a big crowd around them, your instructions to the extras is look like you're talking but don't make sound. Because you need that clean recording of the actors' voices, and you need signal to noise ratio. You need to be able to separate them, and if you've captured it all into one file, you can't separate them. But if you capture the sound of the crowd separately from the sound of the dialogue, now you have control over the balance between how loud they are relative to each other. Now you can add our parametric equalizer to make these voices pop and these voices drop, right? But you could only do it if you record it separately. So when they were recording Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal, everybody else was not actually talking. So then the first thing the sound designer has to do is go back and make that space believable again, make that space come alive again. The second example is from Amelie. They are also in a cafe. There's a lot fewer people, but there are still people. At one point, somebody walks in and he says something, says hello to the crowd. That would have been really recorded, but all of the rest of it, the crowd talking, the people talking, while the main actors are having their little conversation at the counter, you're not going to do those at the same time. So the sound designer goes back and creates a believable reality. I want you to do When Harry Met Sally first, because that's pretty much just a believable reality. And then do Amelie second, because there's a layer of what that film was doing that was just create a believable reality, and then there was a layer on top of that film was doing with sound that is interesting but not necessarily believable. So watch them in that order and listen to the differences between what they were doing with sound. They both started with make it believable, and then Amelie kind of went a little farther.